My husband insisted on hosting the family reunion, acting strangely sweet. So I uncovered his secret plan with my cousin and turned it against him. But even I didn't expect how it all ended. I should have known something was wrong when Aston insisted we host the annual family reunion at our house this year. He'd never cared for these gatherings before, always finding excuses to work late or schedule business trips that conveniently coincided with family events. But there he was, arranging the catering and even picking out the tablecloths. My name is Sophia, and this is the story of how my husband's betrayal became his ultimate downfall. The day started perfectly, almost too perfectly. Sunshine streamed through our floor-to-ceiling windows, highlighting the elaborate spread of food on our dining room table. Family members trickled in, bearing dishes and warm hugs. My sister Addison arrived early to help, eyeing Aston suspiciously as he flitted around the house with uncharacteristic enthusiasm. "Something's off with him," she whispered, helping me arrange wine glasses. "He's never this involved." I nodded, my stomach churning. "I know." The first sign of trouble came when my cousin Annalise arrived. She wore a red dress that seemed inappropriate for a family lunch, her smile a touch too bright as she air-kissed my cheeks. "Sophia, darling, the house looks amazing as always," she gushed, but her eyes were already scanning the room for someone else. I watched as Aston's face lit up when he saw her, a micro-expression that would have been imperceptible to anyone who hadn't spent 10 years memorizing every detail of their spouse's face. My father, Leonardo, was in the middle of his usual speech about family values when Aston clinked his glass, standing up with that smug smile I'd grown to hate over the past few months. "I have an announcement to make," he said, his voice carrying across our suddenly silent dining room. 20 pairs of eyes turned to him, including mine. I believe in honesty, and it's time for me to be honest with everyone here. My hands grew cold around my wine glass. I knew what was coming, had known it was coming for months, but that didn't make it any easier. "Annalise and I are in love," he declared, reaching for her hand across the table. "We've been seeing each other for the past year, and we've decided to be together openly. Sophia and I are getting divorced." The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel everyone's eyes shift from Aston to me, waiting for the breakdown, the screaming, the tears. My mother, Valentina, half rose from her chair, ready to comfort me. Instead, I took a slow sip of my wine and set the glass down carefully. "Is that all?" I asked, my voice steady. Aston's triumphant smile faltered. This wasn't the reaction he'd expected. "Sophia," he started, his tone condescending. "I know this must be shocking." "Not really," I interrupted, standing up. "Though I am curious about one thing, Annalise. Did he promise you a share in the business? Because that might be a bit complicated now." Annalise's perfectly manicured hand tightened around Aston. "What do you mean?" I smiled, reaching for my phone. "Oh, you'll find out soon enough. But please, don't let me stop you two from celebrating your grand announcement. I'm sure you have plans." "Sophia," my father started, his face red with anger, but I held up my hand. "It's fine, Dad. Really." I turned to address the stunned room. "I apologize to everyone for this unexpected entertainment. Please enjoy the food. I need some air." As I walked out onto our terrace, I heard chairs scraping and voices rising. Addison followed me out, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "You knew," she said. It wasn't a question. "For months," I confirmed, pulling out my phone and sending a quick text to Jesse, my lawyer. "And I've been preparing." "Preparing for what?" she asked, just as my phone buzzed with Jesse's response. I showed her the message. "All documents are ready. Operation Karma is go." "Sophia," Addison breathed. "What have you done?" I could hear Aston inside, his voice raised as he tried to maintain control of the situation that was rapidly spiraling away from his carefully orchestrated plan. Through the window, I watched as Annalise touched his arm possessively, already marking her territory. "What have I done?" I echoed, a smile playing at my lips. "I've simply made sure that Karma has an excellent lawyer, big sister. And trust me, she's about to be one heck of a force." The morning after the reunion disaster, I sat in Jesse's office, watching him sort through the stack of documents I'd been collecting for months. My friend Shanice perched on the leather armchair beside me, scrolling through messages from family members still reeling from yesterday's events. 37 texts asking if you're okay, Shanice announced, shaking her head. And one very nasty one from Annalise calling you an ice queen. Should I respond to any of these? "No need," I replied, focusing on Jesse as he pulled out a particular file. "Let them talk." Jesse adjusted his glasses, spreading papers across his mahogany desk. "Everything's in order, Sophia. The timing couldn't be better, actually. Aston signed the last transfer documents 3 days ago, thinking they were routine business paperwork." "Show me again," I said, leaning forward. He pointed to Aston's signature, bold and careless at the bottom of each page. "These give you controlling interest in all 3 subsidiaries." He was so busy planning his grand announcement that he didn't even read what he was signing. The memory of how I discovered the affair flooded back. 6 months ago, I'd noticed Aston's sudden interest in his phone, the way he'd angle it away from me while texting. One night, he'd left his laptop open, and a message from Annalise popped up. "Can't wait until she's out of the picture. Everything will be ours, Sophia." Shanice's voice pulled me back to the present. You okay? I'm fine, I said, straightening my spine. Just remembering the day I decided enough was enough. Jessie gathered the papers into a neat pile. Well, your preparation paid off. The business is essentially yours now. Aston's shares in the main company are worth practically nothing without controlling interest in the subsidiaries. My phone buzzed, Addison calling. I put her on speaker. Sis, you need to hear this, she said, her voice urgent. Aston just tried to access the corporate accounts. He's at the bank right now, throwing a fit because his codes don't work anymore. I checked my watch. Right on schedule. Did he try calling the IT department? Oh yes, Addison laughed. They told him they could only take instructions from the majority shareholder, you. Shanice clapped her hands in delight. Oh, this is better than those revenge movies I love. It gets better, Addison continued. Annalise is with him, and apparently she's not taking the news well. Something about promises he made about their future. Jessie held up another document. Speaking of futures, we should discuss the prenup he insisted on. The irony is beautiful. His own prenup protects your personal assets completely. He can't touch anything you've acquired independently during the marriage, including the businesses I've quietly taken control of. I finished, allowing myself a small smile. The office door opened, and Jessie's assistant poked her head in. Mr. Aston is on line 1. He sounds upset. Jessie looked at me questioningly. I nodded. He pressed the speaker button. Aston's voice filled the room, tight, with barely controlled rage. Jessie, what's going on? I need access to the accounts restored immediately. I'm afraid I can't help you with that, Aston, Jessie replied calmly. I represent the majority shareholders' interests now. What are you talking about? I own those companies. Actually, I spoke up, you don't. Not anymore. There was a moment of stunned silence. Sophia, you're there? What have you done? Nothing you wouldn't have done, I said, keeping my voice level. Just protecting my interests. You taught me that, remember? Always be one step ahead in business. This is ridiculous, he sputtered. I'll fight this. With what money? I interrupted. The personal accounts are frozen pending our divorce settlement, and the business accounts, well, you know how that's going. Annalise's voice came through in the background, shrill with panic. You said everything was taken care of. You promised me. I'll call you back. Aston snapped, and the line went dead. Shanice slow clapped. That was magnificent. It's not over, Jessie warned. He'll try to fight this. Let him, I said, standing up. Everything was done legally. He signed every document voluntarily. His ego made him careless. He never thought I'd be capable of outmaneuvering him. My phone buzzed again. A text from my mother. Your father's furious about the scene, but I'm proud of you. Come to dinner tonight. Going to face the family? Addison asked, still on speaker. I gathered my purse, feeling lighter than I had in months. Yes, it's time they understood that the quiet, agreeable Sophia they knew is gone. Sometimes karma needs a little help, and I'm more than happy to be her assistant. My mother's house smelled like garlic and childhood memories as I walked through the front door. She was stress cooking again, a trait I'd inherited from her. The kitchen counter was already crowded with 3 different pasta dishes. Mama, I called out, are you feeding an army? She turned, wooden spoon in hand, marinara sauce dotting her apron. Sophia, come taste this sauce. Does it need more basil? Before I could answer, my father's voice boomed from his study. Is that her? Sophia, in here now. Here we go, I muttered, squeezing my mother's hand as I passed. Dad sat behind his massive desk, looking every bit the traditional patriarch he'd always been. Close the door, he commanded. I did, then took a seat across from him, smoothing my skirt with steady hands. What you're doing, he began. It's not right. Taking a man's business from him, taking what's rightfully mine, I corrected. There's a difference. He slammed his hand on the desk. It's vindictive. This isn't how we handle family matters. Family matters? I laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. Like how Aston and Annalise handled things by humiliating me in front of everyone. That's different. Why? Because he's a man? Because he's supposed to be allowed to do whatever he wants while I just smile and take it? My father's face reddened. You're acting out of anger. No. I cut in, leaning forward. I'm acting out of self-respect. Something you taught me, remember? Never let anyone make you feel small. That's what you used to say? The study door opened, and my mother walked in, wiping her hands on her apron. Leonardo, enough. Our daughter is right. Valentina, no. You listen to me. She interrupted, moving to stand behind my chair. For 10 years, we watched Aston treat our daughter like a trophy, making her doubt herself, diminishing her achievements. And now you're angry because she finally showed him who she really is? My phone buzzed, an email from Aston. I opened it, reading aloud. Sophia, we need to talk. What happened between us doesn't have to affect business. We can work something out. Please be reasonable. Huh, my father gestured at the phone. See? He's trying to be reasonable. No, I replied, typing a quick no thank you response. He's panicking because Annalise is probably realizing he's not the wealthy cat she thought he was. My mother squeezed my shoulder. How are you really doing, sweetheart? I'm okay, I said, surprised to find I meant it. Actually, I'm meeting Jesse and his wife for dinner to go over next steps. Jesse, my father frowned. Your lawyer? More schemes? Strategy. I corrected, standing up, and protection. Aston's not going to take this lying down. As if on cue, my phone rang. Addison. Sis, she said when I answered. Heads up. Aston just left my office. He tried to convince me to talk you into being reasonable. When I refused, he implied he might have some dirt on Dad's old business dealings. My father's face went pale as he overheard. I put the phone on speaker. What exactly did he say, Addison? Something about irregular payments from the 90s. He's bluffing, right? My father stood up so quickly his chair rolled back. That scoundrel. He promised those records were destroyed. Dad. I turned to him, watching decades of confidence crumble into worry. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Leonardo, what records? He sank back into his chair, suddenly looking every bit his age. It was a different time. Business was done differently then. I held up my hand, speaking into the phone. Addison, I'll call you back. Ending the call, I faced my father. Tell me everything. Now. 20 minutes later, I was back in my car, hands shaking as I dialed Jesse's number. Cancel dinner plans. We need to meet now. Aston's playing dirtier than we expected. What's wrong? Jesse asked. He's going after my father. Old business dealings that could cause problems. Big problems. On my way to the office. Bring your father's records. Everything you can find. I started the car, my mind racing. Aston wasn't just trying to save himself anymore. He was willing to destroy my entire family to do it. The game had changed, but he'd forgotten one crucial detail. I wasn't the same woman who'd silently endured his betrayals. My phone lit up with a text from my mother. Do what you need to do. Protect our family. I love you. I took a deep breath, shifted into drive, and headed toward Jesse's office. Aston wanted to play hardball? Fine. He was about to learn that karma wasn't his only problem. He'd made an enemy of a woman with nothing left to lose. Jesse's office was dark except for his desk lamp when I arrived with my father's old files. Shanice had joined him, laptop open, fingers flying across the keyboard. I've been digging, she announced without looking up. You're not going to believe what I found about Annalise. Later, I said, dropping the files on Jesse's desk. We need to handle this first. Jesse opened the first folder, scanning documents yellowed with age. His expression grew increasingly grave. This is serious, Sophia. These payment records, if they got out, your father would be ruined. I know, I finished. Shanice finally looked up from her screen. But how did Aston even know about these? A memory hit me like a thunderbolt. The fishing trips. Every summer, he'd go fishing with my father. They'd drink, talk business. I grabbed my phone, dialing Addison. What's up? She answered immediately. Those fishing trips Aston took with Dad. Were you ever there when they came back? Sometimes. They'd be drunk, laughing about the good old days. Oh no, Dad talked, didn't he? Bingo, I said, hanging up. Jesse was already organizing the documents into piles. Okay, we need to. His office door burst open. Annalise stood there, mascara streaked down her face. You, she spat at me. You've ruined everything. Shanice stood up, moving between us, but I waved her off. Please, enlighten me about how I ruined your perfect plan to steal my husband and my money. He was never supposed to be poor, she shrieked. This isn't what we planned. I leaned forward. We. Annalise's face went white. She stumbled backward, but Shanice was faster, closing the door behind her. Sit down, I commanded. Tell me everything. I don't have to, actually, Jesse interrupted. You do? Because right now, you're an accomplice in attempted corporate theft. So sit down. She collapsed into a chair, her designer dress wrinkled, her perfect image cracking. It wasn't my idea, she started. Start talking, I said. Marcus started it, she whispered. Marcus. The name hit me like a slap. Your ex-husband? She nodded miserably. He knew about Aston's gambling debts. Said if I could get Aston to leave you, to transfer the business assets before the divorce, the gambling debts. Gambling debts? Jesse asked sharply. Underground poker games. High stakes. He owes a lot. My phone buzzed, a text from Aston. Last chance. Meet me tomorrow at noon. The cafe where we had our first date, or Daddy's secrets go public. I showed the message to Jesse, who smiled for the first time that night. Perfect. He's desperate. Shanice turned her laptop around. Speaking of desperate, look what I found. Emails between Marcus and Annalise, planning everything, including how to blackmail your father if things went wrong. Annalise burst into tears. I'm sorry. Marcus threatened to reveal my own secrets if I didn't help. I never wanted. Save it. I cut her off. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me everything about these poker games, names, dates, amounts. Everything. I can't. These people are dangerous. More dangerous than me? I asked quietly. Because right now, I'm the only thing standing between you and fraud charges. She stared at me for a long moment, then reached for her phone with trembling hands. I have pictures. From when I followed him one night. The location, the people there. Jesse examined the photos. This is perfect. These games are illegal. If the authorities were to receive an anonymous tip, Aston would be ruined. No, I said, standing up. First, we meet him tomorrow. Let him think he's winning. Then we destroy him completely. What about me? Annalise asked in a small voice. I looked at my cousin, this woman who tried to take everything from me, now broken and afraid. You're going to help us, considering your redemption arc. And Marcus? I smiled. He'll get exactly what he deserves. Jesse, draft up immunity paperwork for Annalise. Shanice, get those emails ready. Tomorrow at noon, we're having a very interesting coffee date. The cafe looked exactly the same as it had 12 years ago when Aston first asked me out. The same vintage posters on exposed brick walls, the same mismatched chairs, the same rich coffee aroma. But I was different. I chose a corner table with a clear view of both exits. Shanice sat at the counter, pretending to work on her laptop. Jesse and Addison waited in a car across the street. Everything was in place. Aston walked in at exactly noon, wearing his favorite power suit, the one he wore when he wanted to intimidate people. He slid into the chair across from me, that familiar smug smile playing on his lips. You're looking well, he said, as if we were meeting for a casual catch-up. Cut the small talk, I replied. You threatened my father. He leaned back, adjusting his gold cufflinks, a gift from my father last Christmas. Business is business, darling. You forced my hand. Like you forced Annalise's hand. His smile faltered for a split second. What are you talking about? I pulled out my phone, playing a recording. Annalise's voice, tearful but clear, detailing the scheme with Marcus, the gambling debts, everything. The color drained from his face. You're bluffing. Am I? I slid an envelope across the table. These are copies of your IOUs from the poker games. Quite a sum you've racked up. I wonder what the gaming commission would think. You wouldn't dare, he hissed, but his hands shook as he opened the envelope. Try me. Oh, and before you think about those documents about my father, I pulled out another envelope. Turns out the statute of limitations expired 3 years ago. But your gambling debts? Those are very current. He gripped the table's edge. What do you want? Sign these. I produced a stack of papers. Full divorce settlement. You walk away with your personal assets. What's left of them? No alimony, no claims on the business. And if I don't? Then in about, I checked my watch, 30 minutes, an anonymous tip about illegal high-stakes poker games reaches the authorities. With proof. His face contorted with rage. You vindictive, careful, I interrupted. Think very carefully about your next words. The cafe door chimed. Annalise walked in, followed by Marcus, right on schedule. What is this? Aston demanded, half rising. Sit down, Marcus ordered, his voice low. We need to talk about the money you owe me. Aston's face went from red to white. You told her. She told me everything. I said. How you borrowed money from Marcus to cover your gambling debts. How you promised him a piece of the business once you married Annalise and took control. One problem, though, it was never your business to give away. You set me up, Annalise said, tears in her eyes. Used me to get to Sophia's money. Made me betray my own family. Marcus stepped closer to our table. I want my money, Aston. Now. I don't have it, Aston stammered. Then sign the papers, I said, pushing them toward him. Walk away clean. Start fresh. His hand trembled as he reached for the pen. This isn't over. Actually, it is. I nodded to Shanice, who pressed send on her laptop. Those emails you and Marcus exchanged about the scheme? They're now in the possession of every board member. Your reputation in the business world is finished. He scrawled his signature across each page, desperation replacing arrogance in his eyes. You've thought of everything, haven't you? I learned from the best. I replied, standing up. You always said business was about staying one step ahead. As I gathered the signed papers, Marcus grabbed Aston's arm. We're going to have a private conversation about payment plans. Sophia, Aston called as I headed for the door. I'm sorry. I never meant. Save it. I cut him off. You're only sorry you got caught. Goodbye, Aston. Outside, Jesse and Addison were waiting. Did he sign? Jesse asked. I handed him the papers. Every page. How long until it's official? I'll file them today. By next week, you'll be free. Addison hugged me tight. You did it, sis. My phone buzzed, a message from my mother. Is it done? I typed back, yes. Family dinner tonight. Her response came immediately. Of course. Your father's making his famous lasagna. Says he's never been prouder of you. Looking back through the cafe window, I watched as Aston withered under Marcus's quiet threats. Annalise caught my eye and mouthed thank you before slipping away. Ready to go? Addison asked. I took one last look at the cafe where my story with Aston had begun and where it had just ended. More than ready. It's time for a new chapter. The boardroom fell silent as I walked in, heels clicking against the polished floor. 12 pairs of eyes followed my movement to the head of the table, Aston's former seat. My seat now. Good morning, I said, placing my laptop down. Shall we begin? Harold, the oldest board member, cleared his throat. Miss Sophia, given the unusual circumstances of your acquisition, you mean how I legally obtained controlling interest while my husband was busy planning to steal it through his mistress? I smiled pleasantly. Those circumstances. Nervous laughter rippled around the table. Before Harold could respond, the door burst open. Aston stormed in, looking considerably less polished than usual. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. This meeting can't proceed, he announced. I'm contesting the transfer of shares. I didn't even look up from my laptop. Security, Please escort Mr. Aston out. You can't do this. He slammed his hands on the table. These people need to know what kind of woman you really are. Now I did look up. You mean the kind who caught her husband trying to embezzle company funds to pay off illegal gambling debts? The room went deadly quiet. Aston's face turned purple. You're lying. That's right. I continued, pulling up documents on the projector screen. Let me show everyone exactly what kind of person I am, and more importantly, what kind of person you are. Spreadsheets filled the screen, detailed records of Aston's underground poker losses, followed by suspicious transfers from company accounts. I've already reported these discrepancies to the proper authorities, I announced. The company will cooperate fully with their investigation. The boardroom door opened again. 2 security guards entered, followed by Jesse, and, to everyone's surprise, Annalise. Actually, Annalise said, her voice shaking slightly, she's not. I've already given my statement to the investigators about everything. The gambling, the theft, the plan to take over the company. Aston lunged toward her. You treacherous. The security guards caught him before he could reach her. As they dragged him toward the door, he shouted, Your father's no better. Tell them about his dirty dealings. My father, I said calmly, has already disclosed his past irregularities to the board's ethics committee. Unlike you, he's taken responsibility for his actions. Harold stood up. I moved to formally recognize Sophia as CEO and chairperson, effective immediately. Seconded. Called out Maria, the youngest board member. I've seen enough. The vote was unanimous. As the security guards finally managed to remove Aston, his threats echoing down the hallway, I pulled up the next item on our agenda. Now, I said, let's discuss the company's future. 2 hours later, I stood in my new office, Aston's old office, staring out at the city skyline. Jesse entered with a stack of papers. The authorities want to interview you tomorrow about Aston's financial activities, he said. And Marcus has apparently skipped town. Good, I replied. One less problem to deal with. My phone rang. Addison. Sis, you need to turn on the news right now. I grabbed the remote, switching on the office TV. There was Aston, being let out of his favorite underground poker club in handcuffs, along with several other players and the club owner. Anonymous tip, Jesse said with a small smile. Imagine that. Shanice burst into the office, waving her phone. Have you seen? It's everywhere. Social media is blowing up. How's Annalise holding up? I asked. Better, Shanice replied. She's in therapy. Says she wants to make amends. The office door opened again, my parents this time. My father looked at the TV, then at me. I was wrong, he said simply. You handled this exactly right. My mother squeezed his hand. We both underestimated you, sweetheart. It won't happen again. Another news alert flashed across the screen. Local business tycoon arrested for fraud and illegal gambling. More arrests expected. You know, Jesse said, for someone who just took down her wayward husband, exposed a criminal gambling ring, and became CEO of a major company, you seem remarkably calm. I turned away from the TV, facing my family and friends, the people who'd stood by me through everything. That's because, for the first time in years, I feel completely in control, I said. No more pretending, no more compromising who I am. My phone buzzed with a text from Annalise. Thank you for giving me a second chance. I won't waste it. Looking around at my supporters, at the empire I'd protected, at the future I'd secured, I finally allowed myself to feel the full weight of my victory. Karma hadn't just helped me survive, she'd helped me thrive. And this was just the beginning. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters when I arrived for Aston's arraignment. 3 months had passed since his arrest, and the media circus hadn't died down. Miss Sophia, any comment on your ex-husband's plea deal? How does it feel to be the youngest female CEO in the industry? I walked past them, Addison and Jesse flanking me like bodyguards. Inside, the marble halls echoed with whispers as we made our way to courtroom 3. You don't have to be here, Addison whispered. The prosecutor can handle this. I want to see his face, I replied. I need to. The courtroom doors opened, and there he was, Aston in an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed. Gone was the designer suit, the arrogant smile, the perfectly styled hair. He looked small. All rise. The bailiff called out as the judge entered. I caught movement in my peripheral vision. Annalise slipped into the back row, wearing dark sunglasses despite being indoors. Our eyes met briefly, and she gave a slight nod. In the matter of the state versus Aston, the judge began. The proceedings moved quickly. The prosecutor outlined the charges: fraud, embezzlement, participation in illegal gambling operations. Aston's lawyer, a far cry from the prestigious firm he once used, looked defeated before he even spoke. Your Honor, my client wishes to change his plea to guilty on all counts. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Aston's shoulders slumped. Very well, the judge said. Mr. Aston, please rise. As Aston stood, he turned slightly, his eyes finding mine. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I'd married, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. Before I accept your plea, the judge continued. Do you wish to make a statement? Aston cleared his throat. I'd like to address my ex-wife. The judge nodded. I sat straighter as Aston faced me fully. Sophia, his voice cracked. You were right about everything. I thought I was smarter than everyone else. I thought I could take whatever I wanted. But you beat me at my own game. And the worst part is, you did it legally. Perfectly. Everything I taught you about business, you used against me. Is there a point to this? The judge asked. Yes, Your Honor. I'm trying to say I'm sorry. Not just for the crimes, but for underestimating you, for betraying you, for thinking you were just a trophy wife who wouldn't fight back. The prosecutor stood. Your Honor, while this is touching, we have a plea agreement to discuss. Indeed, the judge said. Mr. Aston, this court accepts your guilty plea. Based on the agreement reached with the prosecution, you are hereby sentenced to 5 years in federal prison, with an additional 3 years of supervised release. As the judge continued listing the terms, including restitution payments, my phone buzzed. A message from Marcus's former poker dealer. Boss, you were right. Found the offshore accounts. Sending details now. I forwarded it to Jesse without looking at him. We discuss it later. The bang of the gavel brought my attention back to the proceedings. As the bailiff led Aston away, he tried one last time to catch my eye. I stared straight ahead. Outside, the reporters were waiting. This time I stopped. Miss Sophia, your response to your ex-husband's courtroom apology? I adjusted my blazer. Actions have consequences. Mr. Aston's actions destroyed our marriage, nearly destroyed our company, and ultimately destroyed his life. Let that be a lesson to anyone who thinks they can take advantage of others without repercussions. Back at the office, I found my parents waiting in my executive suite. My father held up a bottle of champagne. The board meeting went well? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Unanimous approval of your 5-year plan, he beamed. And the stock price is up 12% since the announcement of Aston's plea deal. My mother poured the champagne. To karma, she said, raising her glass. To justice, my father added. To both, I said, clinking glasses with them. My phone buzzed again. Annalise, thank you for not mentioning my involvement in court. I start my new job next week. Clean slate. I typed back, make it count. Looking out my office window at the city skyline, I watched the sun setting on one chapter of my life and rising on another. The company was thriving. Aston was facing justice, and I, earth to Sophia. Addison waved her hand in front of my face. Where'd you go just now? I smiled, turning back to my family. Just thinking about tomorrow. We have work to do. Because that's the thing about karma. She doesn't just deliver justice. Sometimes, she delivers opportunities. And I was ready to seize every single one. The autumn breeze carried the scent of coffee and fresh pastries as I unlocked the door to my old cafe. Our old cafe. The realtor had called yesterday with the news. The owners were selling, and I'd made the highest bid. It's perfect, Shanice said, running her hand along the exposed brick wall. But why this place? Because, I smiled. Sometimes the best revenge is living well. The vintage posters were faded, the mismatched chairs needed re-upholstering, but the bones were good, just like mine had been after Aston's betrayal. My phone buzzed, a text from Jesse. Marcus found in Bali. Local authorities picking him up now. Good news. Shanice asked, noting my expression. The best kind. Justice keeps rolling in. The bell above the door chimed. Annalise walked in, looking different in jeans and a simple sweater, more like the cousin I remembered from childhood. When you asked me to meet you here, she said, glancing around, I almost didn't come. But you did. I pulled out a chair. Sit. We need to talk. She sat, fidgeting with her sleeve. I heard about Marcus. The authorities found him. He'll face charges, I finished. But that's not why I asked you here. I slid a folder across the table. She opened it, her eyes widening. This is a business proposal. The cafe needs a manager, I said. Someone who understands both business and redemption. Someone who needs a real fresh start. Tears welled in her eyes. After everything I did, the past is past, I interrupted. What matters is what we do now. The door chimed again. My parents entered, followed by Addison and Jesse. Well, my father asked, looking around. Is it official? I held up the keys. Just signed the papers this morning. My mother pulled out a small wrapped package. Then you'll need this. Inside was a framed photo. Me at 16, working my first job as a barista, learning the value of hard work and independence. Remember what you told me that summer? My mother asked. That someday you'd own your own cafe? And now, Addison grinned. She owns an empire and a cafe. Jesse cleared his throat. Speaking of empire, the board approved your proposal to start a foundation helping women in business. They were particularly impressed with the mentorship program. A program I hope you'll help with, I said to Annalise. Your experience could help others avoid similar mistakes. She wiped her eyes, nodding. I'd like that. My phone buzzed again. A news alert. Former business tycoon begins prison sentence. Ex-wife's company reports record profits. You know, Shanice said, reading over my shoulder. For someone who lost everything, Aston sure helped you find yourself. No, I corrected her. I found myself. He just made the mistake of getting in my way. The afternoon light streamed through the windows, casting warm patterns on the floor. Outside, life moved at its usual hectic pace, but in here, time seemed to slow. To new beginnings. My father raised an imaginary glass. An old wisdom, my mother added. Actually, I said, moving behind the counter. This old place still has a working espresso machine. Let me make us some real drinks to toast with. As I worked the familiar machinery, muscle memory taking over, I caught glimpses of my reflection in the chrome surface. The woman staring back wasn't the same one who'd once sat here accepting Aston's first dinner invitation. She was stronger, wiser, more complete. I served the drinks, lattes with perfect foam hearts on top, just like I used to make, and raised my cup. To Karma, I said, who taught me that revenge isn't about destroying others. It's about rebuilding yourself. To Family, Annalise added softly, who gives second chances. To Justice, Jesse raised his cup, served both hot and cold. We laughed, and in that moment, I felt the last pieces click into place. The empire I protected would thrive. The cafe would become something new and beautiful, and the foundation would help other women find their strength. As for Aston, he was just another lesson learned, another chapter closed. The real story had always been about me, about finding my power, my voice, my path. The bell chimed again as new customers wandered in, drawn by the lights and warmth. I stood behind the counter, where my journey had truly begun, ready to write the next chapter on my own terms. Because sometimes, karma doesn't just balance the scales. She helps you build something better from the ashes of what was lost. And that's the sweetest revenge of all.